Hello everybody and welcome to the Derek Ruby Show. I am your host, the previously Mr. Ruby, and the 500 sub appreciation poll results are in, and you guys wanted it, so here it is. This is my review of the Dead by Daylight Special Edition. And Special Edition basically means the console edition. It's pretty much the same as PC, which I have played, but it doesn't have Bill from Left 4 Dead because he is a Valve exclusive character. Now what I'm about to say in this review is going to ruffle some feathers, but remember, it's all just my opinion and it's not the law. So let the hate comments begin! So Dead by Daylight is an asymmetrical horror game where one killer takes on 4 survivors. The game ends in one of several ways. Survivors work on and try to complete 5 generators so that way they can power the exit gates and open them so they can escape. Or if you are the last survivor, if your team has failed to meet those requirements, if you have enough generators done, a hatch can open and you could escape. There's also a special key add-on where you or possibly your entire team could escape once the hatch appears. As a killer, your job is to hunt down survivors and put them on hooks. Once a survivor has either been on a hook too long or has been hooked 3 times, they are sacrificed to the entity. The other way a killer can win is he has special offerings called Moris, which lets him kill survivors by his hand after they've been hooked. How many is determined by the rarity of the Mori. Also, several killers have special offerings where they can kill somebody depending on the circumstances of the match. So it's pretty much a cat and mouse game whether the killer actually can kill everybody or the survivor survives. Sometimes 2 survive, sometimes they all do. There is a lot of varying outcomes. Once the match is over, there is an emblem system to tell you how well you did, and that determines your rank. The ranks go from 1 to 20, 1 being the best, 20 being the worst. The better you do in each match, the higher your rank will be. Also awarded at the end of each match are blood points, and blood points are used to buy add-ons, perks, and offerings, which helps create different builds for your character and gives them tools to use in their matches. There is also a leveling up system. As you play in the game, you get these iridescent shards. These iridescent shards can buy cosmetics, or they can possibly buy perks out of what's called the Shrine of Secrets. Not all cosmetics can be purchased with these shards. There are some cosmetics that do require you to spend money. So you can go to the store in the Dead by Daylight menu, and you could buy these different outfits for your characters. Like I bought a black dress for the nurse, which is really nice looking. Now all your iridescent shards and blood points are shared between all your characters, which if you purchased all the DLC for the game, that's 12 killers and 12 survivors. Each character, whether survivor or killer, has their own special skills called perks. As you play with these characters, once you get up to certain levels, you unlock these perks, and they can be used with all your characters, specific to killer and survivor. Now let's go back to the blood web for just a second. Now one thing this game has going for it, it has a plethora of skills and offerings and add-ons that, like I said before, are spread out between all of these characters. But it's also a weakness for the game because as a new player, it can be very daunting to try to learn all of this stuff. It will take you some time to be able to master and learn all these skills. Hell, I still have to ask my friend once in a while, what does this perk do? Because I don't remember or I haven't used it yet. For Christ's sakes, this game actually has a class that you can take in Discord to learn how to play the game. And no game should be so complicated that you should have to take a class for, because it's a game and it's supposed to be fun. Not to mention, not everybody has time to do that, so you're going to spend a lot of time on YouTube looking at player guides to figure out how to play this game when you first start. I personally recommend Tide Time Gaming. Now the game has always had a hint section that try to give you some basic overview of how to play, but it's not very good, but recently they added a tutorial. If you've never played the game, I do recommend you play it because it will teach you some of the basics. And if you're a veteran player and you haven't done this, you really should, because you get 50,000 blood points for completing the whole tutorial, and it's going to be the easiest 50,000 blood points that you ever get. Now, Dead by Daylight has a gritty style, and it really works for it. The graphics look amazing, and it really gives you that horror atmosphere. There are many times in the game when you're playing as a survivor, when the killer's coming around the corner and he doesn't see you, your heart was racing, but you're relieved because he walks on by. And if you ever get a chance as a killer or a survivor to actually explore the maps, there's a lot of detail here. And speaking of the maps, there are probably about 20 maps in the game. And that's really nice, but one of the problems that I do have with it is, there are generally about 5 variations on certain maps like Cold Wind Farm and Auto Haven Wreckers. And while they have a different layout and that's nice, it can be annoying sometimes when you're playing the game and you've played that match for the 12th, 15th time in a row. Now they have special claustrophobic maps like Haddonfield and Springwood, but they never come up nearly as often. So if they're not going to make variations of these maps, I wish they would at least double them up in the game's code, maybe make several copies of them. That way they would show up in the rotation a lot more often. Now when it comes to the design of the characters, the killers are amazing. Like I said, there's 12 of them, and they all range of different sizes. They have different body characteristics. You can tell that Behavior Interactive really took their time to design all of their killers. On the survivor side of things, the survivors do all have their own personality, different facial features, and different little things that distinguish themselves from each other. But if I had one complaint is they all have the same body type. It doesn't matter if you're playing with Meg or Claudette, if you're playing with Dwight or David King, they all have the same body type. I would much prefer if they had a heavy-set character, a muscular character, a tall character, a short character, and some nice body features to go along with it to distinguish the characters and give them a little bit more personality. This isn't like Friday the 13th where you have somebody like AJ who obviously has some nice body features. But the one thing that the character designs do have going for it is whatever ethnicity they are, you can tell that they're that ethnicity, and that's a nice touch. Now, like I said, there are 12 killers and 12 survivors. This is an ever-living, breathing game. It's constantly having updates and it's constantly having new chapters. There's at least 3 more coming this year. And some of it will probably be originally created DLC and some of it will probably be licensed DLC. The DLCs are really good because they give you characters like Michael Myers, Leatherface, Freddy Krueger, and all kinds of things that you would really like. And they're not that expensive and they all come with perks and it's really worth it. Also, any maps that come with the DLC automatically go to everybody whether they purchased it or not so that everybody can play them, and that's really cool. However, I do want to go on to a side tangent for just a second. One chapter that came out last year was the Nightmare chapter, which has Freddy Krueger. And when this character first came out, he was pretty awesome. Behavior was actually able to capture the essence of being in a nightmare in the movies in a game round, and that was amazing. Then a whole bunch of people complained, and they neutered him. As a matter of fact, they neutered him so bad that Behavior ought to be ashamed of themselves because Freddy is a horror icon and he's one of the kings of the slashers, part of the Big Four. They didn't even give it a couple weeks so people could really formulate opinion about it. They just went ahead and did it right away. I knew plenty of people that didn't want to buy this game, but when they announced Freddy, they went ahead and bought it just so they could play with him. And in a couple weeks afterwards, they were really disappointed. Now, I'm not saying that he's not worth his DLC, but if you're just buying him for Freddy, because you're going to have to constantly tunnel survivors, and until you get to level 15 or 20, you're not going to be able to consistently have good matches with him. However, his perks are really strong, and as a survivor, Quentin Smith and his perks are also good, so that's what makes the DLC worth it. But you look at that in contrast to the other licensed killers they have. They have Amanda in the pig costume from Saw, and she's a really great representation of her franchise. Leatherface is also a really good representation of his franchise. And then there's Michael Myers. Now, since Michael has come out, he's had some buffs and some nerfs and a few balance changes, but overall, he is a perfect representation of his franchise. Michael is consistently the top 3 or 4 killer in the game. You will constantly see him. And honestly, I played a lot of asymmetrical horror games. I played Soulless Stake, I played Depth, I played Friday the 13th. There is nothing that gets your blood pumping more than Michael Myers, and they did an excellent job over there at Behavior with Michael Myers. The shape is awesome. So that's why it's a shame of what they did to Freddy. But enough about that. Overall, when you look at the different characters in the game, there's a lot of them, and they all have different skills, and they all have different types of gameplay, and once you get used to them and find the character that you like, you will spend hours playing them. And since this game is constantly updating, there will be more to come. Now, the game has several other game modes, one being Survive with Friends. Normally, if you play Survivor, you just jump into a match and you wait for people in a lobby and then you play the game. Survive with Friends gives you the option to invite your friends to play with you, and more than likely you will be in a party chat, and it will give you a real distinct advantage over the killer. Because unfortunately in this game there is no proximity chat, and even though I do think that they should have that option for the killer that makes the match if there should be a proximity chat of some kind, Behavior said they would never do this. I guess it would ruin the immersion of the game, so it's just one of those things that you can play with your friends for hours, but just know that you will always have an advantage over the killer because of it. Let's all be honest though, playing with your friends is a lot of fun, and I'm glad that they have this in the game. On the other hand, though, they have another mode called Kill Your Friends. Now, Kill Your Friends is used for 3 things. To test every single perk and add-on in the game, to teach somebody, or to test your mettle against your friends. The problem with this mode, and I have argued with people about this on Reddit before, is it sucks. Hardly anybody wants to play it for any length of time because you get no blood points for it. Now don't misunderstand me. I can understand making them not ranked matches, but every other asymmetrical game I've ever played, you can play with your friends. That's part of playing a game. Most people want to play with their friends. I want to play with my brothers. I want to play with the people I play with. So it should be a D-ranked match where you still get points and you don't have access to everything in the game. That kind of a mode needs to be added. Now I hear the argument all the time that people will just farm for points. And my response to that is, you have 24 characters in this game that take 150 levels to get all 3 prestiges. And you tell me that you're worried about people farming blood points? That's laughable. That is a laughable argument at best. Which I forgot to mention the prestige thing. You play through each one of your characters till you get to level 50, and then you reset them, and you get a special piece of clothing, and you do it again up to 3 times. And even after that, you still have to do it at least 15 levels so you can get 4 perks, so you can even have a decent chance of winning a game with that character, at least at the higher levels. So yeah, Kill Your Friends needs to change, and they need to update that. Now here's the fun one to always talk about, is game balanced. Is this game balanced? No. Will it ever be balanced? And the answer is no. This game is pretty much skewed into the survivor's favor. Now, I'm a rank 10 survivor and a rank 10 killer, so I got a good idea of what both sides have to go through. But what a lot of people seem to forget is, a killer has 4 strong perks that they could possibly access, but survivors altogether have 16 perks that they could access, and they have things like Survive with Friends, and there are some maps that cater to them with palette after palette after palette. And the thing of it is, as a killer, you have to basically react to survivors making mistakes, when it's not supposed to be that way. It's supposed to be a powerful force versus a team of people that are weaker. The team should be reacting to the killer's mistake. But that's not how it is. Now I'm going to steal a quote from Tide Time, but I'm going to paraphrase it. People think that a balanced game is 2 people should survive and 2 people should escape. And that's not a balanced game. That's not an asymmetrical game. That would be symmetrical. An asymmetrical game, on average, 3 people should die and 1 person should escape. Because again, the killer is supposed to be OP. The killer is supposed to kill people. Now, I'm not saying there shouldn't be games where everybody survives when somebody makes a mistake or where everybody dies. That's not what I'm saying at all. But on average, 3 people should die, 1 person should escape. And that's just not the way this game's set up. In fact, I find it an odd choice that the game is in a first-person view for the killer and a third-person view for the survivor. Now, I don't have anything against this choice, but honestly, I would think it would be the other way around. A third-person view for the killer and a first-person view for the survivor, because it's supposed to be a horror game, and that would create a better atmosphere. So if there's any game developers listening, get on that. And thanks to my brother Trent for pointing that out. Shout out to him, by the way. Now, I'm not saying that the game doesn't change quite often. They just recently nerfed all the exhaustion perks, and it seems like the devs are setting things in the right way because killers are starting to get buffs and survivors are getting badly needed nerfs. I know a lot of you are probably sitting there saying, well, it's probably because I like to play the killer. No, I play a lot of Survivor too, and sometimes it does seem like the game's too easy. Not all the time, because no matter how good you are, you could win 12 in a row, and there is somebody out there that will humble you no matter what side you play on. The game will punish you. But when you play killer, there's a lot of frustration, and when you play Survivor, it's a lot of fun and teabagging. Now let's talk about the Dead by Daylight community. Now this is one of the most coolest communities I've ever been a part of, and it's also one of the most toxic communities I've ever been a part of. And I'm 36. Now the cool part is, if you are a new player, and you try to play Survivor, and you get in a party with people, they are going to be more than willing to help you. They're going to take you under their wing. They're going to try to teach you the best they can because they want you to do good so their team can survive. You can go on Reddit, you can go on their Discord, and there will be people there that will help you all day long. Even if you're trying to play killer, there will be a lot of people that will take the time, possibly do a kill your friends round with you or whatever, and they will teach you how to play. Also, their devs go on Twitch like once every week or every other week, and they're on YouTube, and they're constantly having updates, and they're constantly communicating with the community. And that stuff is really cool, man. But now let me tell you why it's one of the most toxic communities I've ever been a part of. Okay. Just hear me out. I want to talk about camping. Now, camping is one of the most divisive issues through the entire community. Camping is where you throw somebody on a hook and you just stand there and wait for them to die. Now, this is a stupid strategy in the beginning of a game because if you camp somebody off the bat, you are missing out on all the points you could be getting throughout the game. The other survivors are just going to rush the gens. They're going to get 3 of them done and be working on the last 2 before that person dies. And while that's happening, you're missing out on the brutality points that you get from hitting people with your weapon. You're missing out on devious points, which is whatever your secondary power is. You're missing out on chase points. You're missing out on destruction points. So pretty much you're missing out on any chance of your rank going up and all the blood points that you could be getting. However, the devs themselves have said, camping is a viable strategy. They have perks like Insidious that if you stand in place for 5 seconds, nobody can hear your terror radius and they don't know you're around. They wouldn't have something like that in the game if they didn't find it to be a good strategy. Now, I can tell you, playing killer a lot like I do, there are times where I throw somebody on a hook and you can see the scratch marks right there. Or the survivors don't think you're that good and they come up close and they try to teabag and see if they can distract you. But if they would just let me walk away, they could get their friend down. But sometimes in those instances, yeah, you're going to camp somebody because you can see everybody right there and you're trying to get them. And you really don't care if you pull them off. Because, honestly, if you can hook every survivor twice, you'll get much more points for that than if you let one person die. But sometimes survivors do stupid things and they don't give you any choice. You hook 2 people up on 2 different hooks and there's a generator in between, and it's the last gen to get done. Yeah, you may want to camp that area because you know they're going to come there. And there's nothing wrong with that. Let me paint a scenario for you that happens to me in about 20 to 25% of my games because every now and then I have a bad round. The gates are open, in which case all bets are off. I catch somebody when I haven't killed anyone. I throw them up on the hook, and I decide, well, fuck it, I'm going to camp them. I'm going to get my points. In this instance, 1 person should die and 3 survivors should just leave. But instead, they just can't let it go. So they try to go over there, and I end up hitting them with my secondary weapon, whether it's clown bombs or whatever. And they try to pull them down, and they get pulled on the ground. And then another one gets hooked, and another one gets downed, and another one gets hooked. And pretty soon, before you know it, 1 person escapes, and 3 people die. And that happens in about 80% of that scenario. The other 10%, 4 of them die. And the other 10%, they all actually manage to escape because they're really good. Whether they escaped or not, though, every time they come close to me, they initiate chase points. I might get devious points on them. Even if they all escape, I still get more points than I would have, and a lot of times if they all die, I end up ranking up anyway. But here's the thing, that's when you'll start getting hate messages. I got one from one guy that just says, trash. My response to him, don't be so hard on yourself. You'll do better next time. Good game, LOL. And that's how I deal with people that send me dumb messages. Because here's the thing, and I don't know if this is just a majority of young people, and if you're older, you ought to be ashamed of yourself about this, but people that do this feel so entitled that they feel the need to tell somebody who paid to play this game how they need to play. And that's just ridiculous. You have no right to do that. Think of it like this. If you go into a McDonald's, or you go into a Burger King, and you want to eat a cheeseburger, but you want it plain because you don't like anything on it, and you order your cheeseburger and you sit down, then I walk in the door, walk up to your table, look at your cheeseburger, look at you and say, that's not how you eat a cheeseburger. And then I squirt ketchup on your burger and put onions on it and say, now that's how you eat a cheeseburger. Would any sane person do that? The answer is no. No, they wouldn't. And this is no different. You have no right to tell somebody how to play a game that they paid for. It's not just survivors either. You'll have killers messaging you. You guys hit me with flashlights. You hook blocked me. Why are you guys teabagging at the exit? And then you'll have other survivors messaging other survivors. Yeah, once in a while you may find a purple key and your friend Nevo is stuck up on a hook and you happen to open the hatch and just go ahead and escape on him. Sorry about that, Nevo. But that's the way the game is played. In other words, if you really feel the need to send people messages because you didn't win and you're being a crybaby, go play Fortnite or something else. Because even if you don't camp somebody, if you tunnel somebody, they will cry about it. And here's the thing. Again, tunneling somebody is just fine because in the wild, what do lions do? They see a pack of wildebeest, they get the weak one by themselves, and they kill it. This game has two jobs. If you're a survivor, you are to survive by any means necessary. If you are a killer, your job is to kill everybody by any means necessary. And it happens to us all. I get thrown up on a hook in the beginning and sometimes I get camped, and what do? I let my team know, hey, just get the generators. Leave me behind. Because that's what the smart thing is to do. It's just a game. I can't win every single round. And regardless, if that killer sends me a message, I'll tell him good game. Because at the end of the day, there are only two types of people that play this game I don't respect. Ones that do stuff like lag switch and find exploited glitches and are cheating. Yeah, I don't have any respect for you. And ones that quit. I don't know how many times I have taken somebody down into the basement and they just quit. Ha 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 ha. Yeah, disconnect, bitch. Peanut butter basement time, peanut butter basement time, peanut butter basement time. And that's the thing, when you are quitting, you're screwing your whole team. Because now they're down one person. And if you were an obsession perk like Dying Light, you really screwed your whole team. And there are other people that I don't respect in this game that purposely get themselves killed just to screw their team. Yeah, it's annoying for a killer when a survivor quits, and it's also pretty funny when you're a survivor and a killer rage quits. Which is really messed up for them because they just wasted all their points. They won't get any points for quitting, and they spent all that time playing that round for nothing. And no matter how you play, even if you play every way that the community wants you to play, you will still get hate messages because somebody didn't win. And if they can't win, they gotta bitch about it. But regardless, if you can't accept the fact that you can possibly lose, don't play. The bottom line is, don't tell people how to play. Just play the game and enjoy yourself and move on. Say good game and move on. And that's all I gotta say about that. I guess the number one question is Dead by Daylight fun? And the answer is hell yes it is. I have spent countless hours playing this game since it came out. The cat and mouse game just never really gets old. There's so many different people to play and there's so many factors, and the game is constantly changing, and it's always fun. Don't get me wrong, there's times where I can be frustrated, but it's still a very fun game. And I highly recommend that you buy it. It's definitely worth the money, and all the DLC is as well. And all the extra stuff in the store is just cosmetics. It doesn't give you any advantage. So the game's not pay to win, and I like that. And I do love being a part of this community. Now, I was going to review this game a year ago, and I just never got around to it, and I had a rating in mind back then. I rate everything with the 5-star rating system, 5-star being the best it could be, and 0 stars meaning it's the shits. But the thing of it is, as much as this game's changed in the last year, the core game itself is pretty much the same. So I don't think it earned a better rating from me than it would have last year. But I'm going to give Dead by Daylight, the special edition, 4 stars. So thank you guys for watching the Derek Ruby Show. You can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, and Instagram. And as always, have a good one. And I'll see you guys next time. Peanut butter basement time, peanut butter basement time, peanut butter basement time.